All right, sorry, my video stopped and yeah, I anyway, you don't need to worry about that. So let's continue. So here, if we have the 500 elk and they're growing, they're reproducing, they're having babies, their growth would go exponentially. But in reality, the environment cannot support that type of exponential growth. In reality, they're going to hit what's called a limiting factor. And what is that limiting factor going to be? And the ability of the environment, like how many individuals can the environment support, that's the carrying capacity. So like the drawings that I showed. So exponential growth in a new population hits a limiting factor, and then we're at carrying capacity. That's what usually happens. So it says populations cannot grow unchecked forever. So exponential growth never lasts long in nature. And this is what we've seen in populations. Okay, so let's continue. So there's something called growth rate, okay? So what's the growth rate of a population? Growth rate's abbreviated as R, and growth rate is really the birth rate. Why doesn't it have it in here? It doesn't. That's right. Growth rate is really the birth rate minus the death rate. And so they'll have it later. Growth rate initially, when there's that exponential growth, it's, the growth rate is multiplied by the number of individuals in the population. So that's what it has. All right, so exponential growth. Populations cannot grow unchecked forever, so exponential growth never lasts long in nature. So even with COVID-19, if there's exponential growth, eventually it's going to level off, okay? Eventually, we are doing certain things to try to stop it. So we're doing the social distancing to try to stop it. And so that's a little different. But eventually, like, if this was a natural population where we weren't trying to do anything about it, some individuals will die, a lot of individuals will get it, and it'll just be part of the population and it'll level off, okay? So populations tend to grow exponentially, but this growth is eventually limited. So a population's growth is limited by the environment. Is there enough space? Is there enough food? Is there competition? So there are called density dependent factors and density independent factors. So if you look at this, what do you see right away? If I go back, I don't want you to, right? Cheetah, hyena, something's going on. Look, blood on the mouth of the cheetah. There's competition here, okay? So there could be competition between individuals, and that would limit growth rate too. With increased density, a population's growth can be reduced by limited resources. So we're talking about a limiting factor. So as population size increases, as population size increases, organisms experience the following: reducing of food, diminished accessibility to places to live and breed due to competition, increased incidence of parasites and disease, increased predation risk. So these are examples of things that would slow that curve, right? And where it would level off, okay? So they're called density dependent factors. And I wish I had my whiteboard, right? So limiting factors, it could be density dependent, meaning the numbers of individuals influences how large the population gets. The limitations are a consequence of population density. So the ceiling on growth is carrying capacity, K, of the environment. So you know that the exponential growth, and then I put that blue line, so that would be carrying capacity because the population, is gonna settle in that place. So carrying capacity, yes, okay, you don't have to worry about that. So here's a much better picture than what I had, right? So here, if this is exponential growth curve, if here's the carrying capacity, and then in reality, we see that, but in reality, we see populations leveling off and we have a logistic growth curve. And so that's what we see. So other things, other factors that can limit population growth. It says density independent. So the numbers of individuals in that place don't affect the population. Something else does. So mostly weather-based. So what if there's a fire? And this is horrible, right? And I remember doing this lecture where we were having our horrible fires in California, where acres and acres burned. So look at these little guys. They're in here. Why are they in here? They're trying to get away from the fire. Okay? What a horrible thing. But the plants are burning. Probably some animals are burning too. So if that's happening, if the population's doing this, and if that happens, what's going to happen? Population's going to go down. That's right. So density independent forces, fires, floods, earthquakes can dramatically reduce population size. So in reality, we can see exponential growth, but it will level off, okay? And it can level off from density dependent factors, so competition, food, space, etc., or density independent. So if there's a fire, flood, earthquake. Yes. So how about us as people? What is our growth curve like? Well, let's go there. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit in this PowerPoint presentation. People, we are not making this up, okay? This is real. This is actually happening. And it's truly concerning. Let me go there. Human. Okay, why am I not finding it? The human population, or the human population growth curve. What? Oh, there it is. Okay. From current slide. Okay, look, human population growth curve. Human population in the billion. How many billion people are there? There's more than 7 billion, okay? 7 billion. A billion is 1,000 million. A million is 1,000 thousand. That's a lot of people on Earth, okay? Look at this. Time, right? Human population, so numbers. For the longest time, we were less than a billion. And then we became a billion. And then look at 1850, we're a billion. This is on Earth, okay? 1930, 2 billion. 1975, 4 billion. 2011, 7 billion. What kind of growth curve is this? Yes! Exponential. It's exponential growth curve. So this is happening, okay? It's so weird to be teaching biology right now with COVID-19. Okay, it's so strange. It feels kind of eerie, okay? Usually, you know, I've taught biology for years and years, and we've talked about this. We've talked about exponential growth, and we talk about the fact that our Earth cannot sustain exponential growth. So then we talk about, as humans, okay, we're more than 7 billion right now on the planet. And always when I talk to my students, I talk about, okay, what's going to be the carrying capacity? And that's what biologists talk about. How many people can the Earth support? And how far can we go? And then they talk about what's going to be our limiting factor, okay? So some people say water, okay, not having enough clean water. Some people say energy, not having enough. Right now we use oil, right? But what if we use wind energy? What if we use solar energy? Some people say food, right? For the longest time, our population was limited, right? Birth rates and death rates. Birth rates and death rates were about the same. So when birth rates and death rates are about the same, the population basically maintains. But something happened. Modern agriculture, modern medicine, where birth rates were the same, but death rates went down. So if birth rates are the same and death rates are down, what's going to happen to the population? Bam! Okay, and that's exactly what's happening. I'm going to have a video for you guys to watch. It's kind of boring, okay, but stick with it. It's just a few minutes, okay? It seems boring, but when you look at it, it really gives you perspective on what this means. And again, we can ask why. Why is this happening? Okay, so what did I say? So we're going to hit a limiting factor. Is it water? Is it going to be energy? What is it going to be? Is it going to be disease? Okay, people talk about this. Biologists talk about this. And right now with COVID-19, what's really scary about it is it's very contagious, right? But truly, the death rate's pretty low, okay? So it's not going to wipe us out. As humans on this planet, it's not going to wipe us out. But if there was something else that had a higher death rate, then it could totally limit the population growth. Okay, so these are real things that economists look at, that biologists look at, and it's really interesting to look at it. So human population growth, how high can it go? At what point are we going to hit the Earth's carrying capacity? Okay, and what's going to be the factor? Do we have a limitless carrying capacity? We keep expanding into new habitats, right? This is Dubai. Really hot, not a lot of water, but we're building and we're living. Yeah, we keep increasing our carrying capacity with the food, with agriculture, right? With automating, it says fertilizers, mechanized agricultural methods, selection for higher yields. Fewer people can now produce more food than was previously thought possible. Here, finding ways to live at higher density. So that's this idea of going up, right? And with New York, why was COVID-19 so horrible? One, there are really three things, okay? One, New York is a major hub for people coming to this country. So if you look at the world, right? So here's New York, East Coast. Well, I'm not doing it right. I don't know. Okay, here's New York, East Coast. And if people are coming in from Europe, from Asia, their first stop to this country is New York. Okay, so it's this major hub. So that's number one. So if people are infected and they're coming to our country, they're probably coming to New York. Okay, they are. There's a lot of people coming to New York. Second, New York is a huge city. Okay, what's the big deal about a huge city? A lot of people next to each other, congregating around each other. So if there's an infectious disease, it can spread easily, quickly, right? Because there's so many people, right? And then New York has this other thing that's actually a wonderful thing. They have public transport, right? They have the subways and so on, which is wonderful for New York. But if there's an infectious disease, oh my gosh, you have one person sitting in the subway, now they've infected everybody in the subway. And then those people all go and then infect other people and so on and so forth. So you can see how that can spread so easily. So this idea of density dependent factors, right? And influencing the spread of a disease. Okay. Yes. So when we look at our world, how high can it go? This is very difficult to assess just how many resources each person needs. Ecological footprint, evaluating how much land, how much food, water, fuel, among things that are necessary. Oh my gosh, isn't this interesting? What is this? This is a meat processing plant in China. They're processing meat, okay? How much, look at this. How much food can they make for people to consume? And again, I find this so wild right now with COVID-19. I don't know if you guys heard about some of our meat processing plants here in this country. And where people, look at how people are working, right? They're next to each other. Look, isn't this interesting? They do have masks. They are covered, right? Because they're trying not to contaminate the food. But look at this, right? We have to circulate the air in there. And I forget, I think it was pork. There are a few pork processing plants where people have been infected. So they had to shut the plants down. I forget what percentage of our, right now, as we're speaking, our pork, I think it's almost up to 25% of the pork supply is down because of processing plants quitting. Okay, but that's just interesting. Okay, but this right here is talking about how much food can we raise to eat. And if you eat plant-based food versus if you eat animal-based food, to eat an animal, it takes a much bigger toll on our earth, Why? The food chain, right? And going up the food chain, it takes a lot of resources to support that animal versus eating that plant. So we'll be talking about that with what's called ecological footprint. Okay, so let's go back. Oops, yeah, let's go back to where we were. I like to skip around a little bit to talk about the human population because I think that's such an important topic. I hate to say this. I shouldn't say you. I should say we. We will be dealing with this. Okay. It just so happens right now we're dealing with a pandemic. Okay. And in a way, you think, it's lowering our numbers, right? So if it increases death. So population growth is birth rates minus death rates. So if death rates are going up, population growth is going down. And from a biological perspective, we're, slowing that growth rate. Okay. So how many people can the earth support? Why does the answer keep increasing? So yeah, agriculture, modern agriculture is a wonderful thing, right? It takes way less people to make enough food for everybody. So we keep increasing our carrying capacity, our limiting factor there. Development of agriculture technology is one example of how carrying capacity can be increased. All right. Okay. So now for the rest of the lecture, we're going to talk about cycling, some population cycle. We're going to talk about lifespan. So I'm going to do that rather quickly because really population growth, exponential growth, logistic growth, carrying capacity, limiting factors, those are really important, okay? The human population and what's happening with the human population, those things are really important. Okay. So we can have boom and bust population growth. Do you guys remember? And I think, no, I didn't post it. The butterflies, the explosion of butterflies, where there were billions of butterflies. And actually just recently, if you guys were noticing, I mean, a lot of us are quarantined, right? But if you saw the butterflies. So sometimes populations don't grow logistically, as occasionally happens with desert locusts. It's kind of boom, tons of organisms, and then bust, right? Sometimes population oscillate, like going up and down and up and down. And that would be an example with predator-prey relationships. So for example, the hare, right, and the lynx. So here it says in blue is the hare population, the prey. In green is the predator, okay? So the prey population's going up. As they go up, the predators go up, right? Because the predators are eating the prey, all as well. But then there are too many predators and they're eating so much prey that the prey populations start going down. And when the prey population starts going down, now the predators population will start going down because they're not able to eat. And then it cycles. So it says a growing hare population provides more food for the lynx, which then reproduce at higher rates. So here's the hare, here's the lynx. But then lynx eat too many hares, thereby reducing their food source and causing their own population to crash, which enables the hare populations to grow, and so it's cyclical. So we can have exponential growth, we can have logistic growth, sometimes we have boom and bust. So an example of that are those locusts or those painted ladies, those butterflies we saw last year and we saw this year too. We can have predator-prey populations where they're oscillating, where they're going up and down. Okay, maximal sustainable yield, managing our resources. We as humans, we don't know how much, where can our carrying capacity go? What we often don't know: population carrying capacity, numbers of individuals alive, stability, which individuals to harvest. Okay, so looking at that. Life history, populations, and how come some organisms live longer, some organisms live a shorter amount of time? It has to do with the environment. So life histories are shaped by natural selection. So Big Bang production. So for example, look at this guy, reaches sexual maturity 1 year, mates intensely over a 3-week period. Male dies shortly after mating. Females usually die after weaning their first litter. So these guys don't live very long. These guys, oh my gosh, look at this. Isn't this an amazing picture? Fast, intensive reproductive investment reaches, okay, this is why you don't want mice or rats in your house or around your house. Okay, look at this. Reaches sexual, here's this little mouse, yeah? Reaches sexual maturity at 1 month. Oh, they're so cute. Produces litters of 6 to 10 offspring every month. So can you say exponential growth curve? Well, why aren't we overrun by mice? Right? The predators, they're keeping them in check, okay? They truly are. Mice are like nature's fruit snack, okay? Everybody's eating them, okay? And because of that, that has shaped reproduction. And so they reach sexual maturity really early, have a lot of babies, because in reality, natural selection has selected for that. And then so we that's what we see. So it's this idea of how ecology, how the environment affects even reproduction. Slow gradual reproductive investment reaches sexual maturity at 1 year. That's very different than 1 month, okay? Produces 1 offspring per year. That's very different than 6 to 10 every month. So what does that tell you about bats? Are they nature's fruit snack? No, they're not, okay? And that's why they don't reproduce as much. So it's pretty complicated, looking at what's happening. It says, is one strategy better than the others? No, right? It all depends on the environment. There are many possible responses: when to reproduce, how often, how much. Okay, so for example, humans, right, we fall into this too. It says there are trade-offs between growth, reproduction, and longevity. So for example, if we're going to design a model organism, the structure of its life history for maximum fitness creates one that could produce many offsprings, right? Have a lot of babies, begin just after birth, start having babies real quick, continues every year, growing tremendously large, living forever, okay? That would be a model perfect organism. Do we see that in nature? No. Okay, we do not. Why? We do not see that in nature because it's all about energy. How much energy do you have to do this, this, or this? And energy is not limitless, okay? So to produce many offspring takes energy. To begin just after birth, continue every year, grow really large, okay, to reduce predation risk, live forever. All of this requires energy. So what we see in nature is there are trade-offs, right? If we're going to produce a lot of babies, then we die fast. If we're going to produce fewer babies, if we're going to live longer, we produce fewer babies and we have them later on in life, okay? So evolutionary constraints. These traits are not all possible because selection that changes one feature tends to adversely affect others. Evolutionary trade-offs. So 3 areas to which an organism can allocate its resources. We're talking about energy: growth, reproduction, survival. So usually we see some trade-offs between that. So are they growing fast or are they growing slow? Are they having a lot of babies or not? How long do they live? All right, so we can have what are called life tables or survivorship curves. We'll focus on this survivorship curve. So tortoises, do they live a long time? Yes, they live a long time. So they grow slow, right? They're not having tons of babies. So here it says type 1, high survivorship until old age, then rapidly decreasing. So here is numbers of individuals. Here's age. For a tortoise, numbers of individuals, and they grow and they live for a long time, ripe old age. Okay, they could be 100, 150. Okay. Survivorship curve shows a proportion of individuals of particular age that are alive in the population. Let's look at these guys, okay? The mackerel, type 3. This is type 3 survivorship curve. Okay, so here are all the babies. What do you notice? What's that? A bunch of them are dying, okay? Early on in life, a bunch of them die. And if they make it, then they can make it a little longer. So high mortality early in life, but those that survive live long lives. Now here, type 2, what this is showing us is the death rate or survivability is basically constant throughout the individual's life. Okay, so we can have type 1 survivorship curve, type 2 survivorship curve, and type 3. And I guess what you can look at is how do they survive? Type 1, they survive, most of them survive into old age. Type 2, death rate is pretty constant throughout lifetime of an individual or individuals in the population. Type 3, high mortality rate early on in life, and then living longer. Okay, so if we look at this, humans, what type of survivorship curve do humans have? What do you think? I'll let you think about that. All right, life table, survivorship curves. Okay, ecology influences the evolution of aging. This is super duper interesting. You know, why do some populations age faster or slower? Is it written in our DNA? Okay, things fall apart. That's what aging is. What's aging? It's falling apart. Okay, isn't that horrible? All right, so here's a beautiful picture of these women, right? It says, shown here, a group portrait of 16 women taking 26 years apart. So it's the same women, right, 26 years later. And you see a notable change, right? So what's happening? Remember, we're made out of trillions of cells, okay? And our cells reproduce. Well, our biological clock, as we get older, our cells don't reproduce as fast. Our cells don't reproduce as much. And so it's literally aging is the gradual deterioration of the body. Why do organisms age? And does evolution, natural selection, ecology have anything to do with it? The answer is yes. Okay. So it is in our DNA. Okay. So for example, if we have a baby and let's say something's up with the DNA where it says natural selection weeds out alleles that cause sickness and death early in life. So if there's a baby and it has some kind of genetic abnormalities, if it causes the baby to die early in life, let's say age 10, before reproducing, what's going to happen to those genes? They're out of the population, okay? Versus, what if the child carries genes that cause sickness and death later in life? So here, mutations that cause sickness and death after reproduction will be passed to future generations. If it's born with mutant alleles that cause death at age 150, let's say, so here they are, well, they're going to reproduce. If they reproduce, they're passing those genes on, and then the individual dies later on in life. But the babies now still have those genes. Okay, so it says the cumulative effect of buildup of late-acting harmful alleles are responsible for what we see in aging, and that's what we see over time. Do some people age better than others? Yes, okay, and that's a genetic component also. Of course, there's nature versus nurture, right? So nature being your DNA, right, and nurture being your environment. So even if you had great genes, if you drink a lot, if you're exposed to the weather a lot, if you work in a really bad environment where you're exposed to toxic chemicals, you're not going to do well, right? So that nature versus nurture thing. All right. So cancer, it says a cure for cancer may be discovered, but not a cure for aging. Why? Well, there are multiple mutations that can cause this. And again, if the person survives and passes on those genes, then the next individual is going to have them. What determines the average longevity? It has to do with the environment, right? So if you're nature's fruit snack and a lot of predators going after you, you're not going to live very long, but you're going to reproduce quickly. Okay, relatively high risk of death, early age, individuals tend to reproduce earlier aging. How funny is that? Versus low hazard factor, look at this, Relatively low risk of death at each age. Individual tends to reproduce later. Later aging, longer lifespan. How cool is that? Did you know that? So in environments characterized by low mortality risk, populations of slow aging individuals will, with long lifespan, evolve. In environments characterized by high mortality risk, the opposite occurs. So we see that there is an environmental component. Did you know that? Right. All right. Can we slow down the process of aging? Yes, right? If we can identify the genes. And then here's that fruit fly experiment, right? Where we've talked about this with evolution, where we increase their, what is it called? Their starvation resistance. But of course we can never do that to humans. Okay, human population growing rapidly. Okay, going like crazy. We talked about this. We can have, and this is finishing up our lecture for this chapter, the human population. We already saw the growth curve. Bam, okay? And we can say why. And can we look at what we call population pyramids? And what do population pyramids tell us about the population? So it says age pyramids reveal much about a population. Okay, so for example, developing countries kind of have this type of age pyramid where there are a lot of young people. Okay, here's females, here's males, population in the millions, okay? And then here is age, so 0 to 4, 5 to 9, data. So this particular pyramid, this population is going to grow, right? Because there's a lot of young people and they're still going to grow and go up this way. Okay. Now, but we have to look at birth rates and death rates. Okay, so what's happening? Versus here, Norway. What is this population? What does this age pyramid tell you? Look, 2015 population in the thousands, females, males. There's about the same amount, so it's kind of like a rectangle. Okay, so the population is really not growing. Okay. This population is going to grow. This population is basically maintained. So around the world, in different countries are in different places with population growth. Some countries, their population growth is going down. Some countries, their population growth is going up. As a human race, our population is going up. Okay. So here's the United States. We're pretty stable, right? And it shows the baby boomers in here. So age pyramids show the number of individuals in a population. They also allow us to estimate birth death rates over multi-year periods. Now there's something, and this is where we're going to finish off in today's lecture. There's something that happens to countries. It's called the demographic transition. So what happens to a country where they go from this to this? Or can that happen? What do we see from less developed countries to more developed countries? Okay, so this is an important graph. It's called demographic transition. Okay, now remember, I wish I can't write on the board, right? So remember, population growth is birth rates minus death rates. Actually, you know what? Let me go out of here. Let me go out of here. Let me go to my whiteboard and oh my. Okay, we're gonna now with all my erasing, I'm forgetting what I'm gonna do. Okay. So birth rate, excuse me, population growth. If you remember, population growth was represented by an R. It equals, okay, birth rate, okay, minus death rate. Okay, all right. So, when we were looking at the human history, for the longest time, our population growth curve was going like this. It was straight, okay? So imagine, if birth rates are high, I'm going to use this color. If birth rates are high, you're thinking, oh, population is going to go up. But what if death rates are high? If birth rates are high and death rates are high, what is happening to population growth? Okay, the population growth is stable, right? It's not, oh my gosh, stable. This is ridiculous and I apologize. Okay, population growth is stable, okay? Because birth rate's high, death rate's high, it's stable, okay? So now think about our evolutionary history. Agriculture, more food, energy, etc. Now, birth rates, okay, so here's population growth, okay? And birth rates are still high, okay? They're still high, minus death rates. But when we talk about modern medicine, what do you think modern medicine has done to death rates? Boop, boop, right? So if modern medicine decreased death rates, but if birth rates are still high, what's going to happen to population growth? Is it going to stay the same? No, it's going to shoot up, right? So population, oh, my here, let me get rid of this. So population is really going to shoot up, okay? And that's actually what we're seeing. So some countries are right here, okay? But, okay, here's population growth again, okay? But eventually what we see in industrialized countries is eventually we see birth rate does what? Birth rate eventually does this, okay? Minus death rate, and death rate's basically the same, or, you know, down. But if birth rate's down and death rates are the same or down, what's going to happen to population? Or you know what? I'll do that. That's because, okay, we still have modern medicine. If birth rate's down, death rate's down, what's going to happen to population growth? It's going to stay stable too. Okay, so around the world, we see that different countries are in different places in regards to this. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so slow growth, fast growth, slow growth. So we actually see that. So depending on where we are in the world, let me go down, I don't go down here. Okay, depending on where we are in the world, right, we can look at population growth. So demographic transition is a pattern, is a pattern of population growth that's experienced as a country industrializes. It is characterized by slow growth, fast growth, then slow growth. Okay, so think of, like, you know, depending, you know, hundreds of years ago, if birth rate and death rates were high. Okay, population with inefficient systems of food production, distribution, along with lack of reliable medical care, usually have high birth rates and high death rates, leading to slow population growth. So the yellow is birth rates, so high birth rates. Here's death rates, here's time. So the yellow is birth rates, the purple is death rates. So this particular population has high birth rates, high death rates. So if they have high birth rates, high death rates, population growth is low. Now, modern medicine, agriculture, etc. Birth rates are still high. Death rates go down. So if death rates go down, guess what? Population booms. Okay? As industrialization begins, both food production and healthcare improve, leading to a reduction in death rate. The birth rate remains relatively high, so the country's population grows. Okay? Then eventually we get to here. Okay, as industrialization continues, the birth rate decreases. Birth rate, which one's birth rate? The yellow. Birth rate decreases, okay? As a result of higher levels of education, employment, along with improved healthcare, the new lower birth rate then slows the population. And so birth rates are lower, death rates are low, so population goes down. Okay. So around the world, we have countries here, we have countries here, we have countries here. And overall, our population is still going up. Okay. Now there's a very interesting thing, and I think I have it in the homework, right? What is it that contributes to lower birth rates? You know, there's a specific thing. It says with increased level of education and employment. Specifically, what research has shown is it has to do with women. When women are more educated, they tend to have fewer babies. Why? That sounds ridiculous, okay? Well, with education comes education about birth control. With birth control, now, birth control truly revolutionized our society because with birth control, now women can choose when they want to have babies, you know? Before that, you have sex, you might have a baby, right? Who knows what's going to happen, right? And so, yeah, so we see that around the world. So it says population growth is alarmingly slow in Sweden and alarmingly fast in Mexico, right? So Sweden is here. Mexico is right here. Actually, they're going through demographic transition. All right, so we are finished with this chapter. I'm going to have some videos for you, one about population, exponential growth, and population, the human population, which is really interesting. Again, at first it's kind of boring, but if you just stick to it, it's like, wow, because it shows this. And what is it in human history that kind of led to this? They show the plagues, they show famines, they show wars. But then, again, agriculture, modern medicine, and then we're doing this. People, if you really stop to think about this, look at this. 8,000, 6,000, 4,000, 2,000 BC, AD. For thousands of years, we were less than a billion people on this world and on this earth. And then 1850, we're a billion. 1930, 1975, 2000. So not even, a little more than 100, 150, 160 years, we have expanded so much. And that is what's worrying biologists, right? Because it's like, what is the Earth's carrying capacity and how much can the Earth really support? All right, so please do the homework. I'm going to have a quiz. I'm going to have a discussion. And again, I'll have some videos. We'll also have a lab that we're doing this week. All right. See you later.